We're thinking Pride Month, we're thinking Summerween. Let's talk about the books that I want to read this June. Still have a mix between new releases, arcs that I need to read, as well as books that I've checked out from the library. So a little bit of everything in here, both backlist and new. Let's talk about the arcs that I want to read this month. False Prophet by Afshin Farhadi. This is pitched as The Girls Meet Yellowface. It is about an actor whose acting career is going well, but has decided to write a story from his mother's point of view about her relationship with Jim Jones from the cult fame. And he can offer this like very specific point of view that no one has seen before. The only issue is that he's mostly making it all up. So I love a cult novel. I love a person doing bad things in media novel. This sounds like a great time, and it comes out in July, I think. So I will be getting to it this month. The next two books are coming out later in September. However, I have so many arcs that are coming out in October because that is like the month to release horror novels. So I want to get to some sooner rather than later. In these Gilded Ghostly Hearts by Gwendolyn Keist. I still have not figured out how to say her name, but I promise that I will by the time that I actually read this book. And I loved The Haunting of Velkwood from her, and that had kind of a queer relationship at the heart of it. And in these Gilded Ghostly Hearts is a Great Gatsby retelling that is also somehow queer in nature. Not sure to what extent, but I love a Great Gatsby retelling, so I'm looking forward to this. As well as Joshua Chaplinsky's The Man in the Watch Still Visits Me at Night. This one is, by the cover, not something that I would have immediately gravitated towards, except for I loved Joshua Chaplinsky's Letters to the Purple Satin Killer. It really took me by surprise, the depth that it had, the emotional weight to it, just the nuance to it. And so I'm really looking forward to this, which is described as House of Leaves meets David Lynch, that it has cult film vibes. I think has something to do with dreams, things that are surreal in nature. Really looking forward to this one. And then maybe I will be getting to Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Paul Tremblay in June. It doesn't release until the end of June, but I just applied for an ALC of it, so we'll see if I get to it this month. I would love to get to it this month if possible, but this is somehow a Philip K. Dick inspired horror-ish novel. Like, I think there's horror elements, but maybe it's more in the sci-fi speculative realm for Paul Tremblay. But like Philip K. Dick, has horrifying implications to some of the plots that he comes up with. I think this will be more the horrifying implications realm of horror. You never know when new things might get approved on Netgalley, so maybe more arcs in this month, but that is like what I would love to get to. I'm actually doing pretty well with my Netgalley rate right now. It's at like 72%, which I think is pretty good considering how many that I have approved currently that do not release until October. So yeah, no, I haven't gotten to them yet. I'd like to get to them as it's approaching spooky season. However, it is Summerween, and I love to be a festive gal. So much do I love to be a festive gal that yes, I will be participating in Summerween during winter because June is the first month of winter here in Australia. But it is also Pride Month, so I'll be getting to some queer stories as well. And you may not be surprised to learn that whenever I was looking at my TBR, really I did not have to shoehorn any queer stories into there. It kind of already naturally was this way. So let's get into my library reads. One that was popular years ago, Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, was pitched as a gay horror story, gothic, boarding school, fairy tales, that kind of vibe. Sounded really interesting for a young adult novel, but I'm not really a young adult horror reader. However, C.G. Drews is an Australian author, and it is my mission to be reading as much Australian horror as possible and to be highlighting the fact that, yes, it is Australian. So I do want to get to this, and I have been pleasantly surprised with YA horror that I've read in the past, and I love a boarding school setting. Sue me. I think I also have some CG Drews sitting in my Libby holds or maybe currently checked out. I'll have to look into that as well, but I do want to get to this one first because I would like to prioritize some physical backlist reads. Honey Eater by Kathleen Jennings is not queer to my knowledge. However, it is Australian horror, Australian gothic horror. And really, that's all I know about it. I love the idea that it's called Honey Eater, so I'm hoping there are bird elements in there. I have honey eaters who come visit me in my garden here frequently, so maybe they will be coming to visit me in this story as well. It says subtropical Belworth is founded on floodplains and root-bound secrets, and Charlie, remarkable only for vanished friends and a successful sister, plans to leave for good just as soon as he deals with his dead aunt's house. Then Grace arrives, desperate with roses pressing up through her skin, and drags Charlie into the ghost-choked mysteries of Belworth, uncovering the impossible consequences of loss and desire and a choice Charlie made when he was a boy. So a spooky gothic house full of secrets, a town full of secrets. I'm curious if this is actually set in Australia. I'm thinking it probably is since it says it is subtropical, but we will find that out together. Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle was one that I started reading right before I was moving to Australia, and I was listening to it on audiobook, and like in the midst of moving, like it just did not get finished, but I was loving it and I want to go back and finish it now. But it is about a gay conversion camp and scary demonic stuff happening. I was really liking this. I really liked Straight by Chuck Tingle. I can't remember if I've actually finished a Chuck Tingle other than Straight at this point, but yeah, I find his writing style very engaging, and I will definitely be restarting this one from scratch because I don't remember anything other than how much I was enjoying it. A book that has been on my TBR for ages, and I am purposefully trying to get to it during this Pride Month, is Poppy Z. Bright's Exquisite Corpse. And this one is about serial killers who are engaging over their evil desires together and love for doing bad things together, going from London to New Orleans. I know Poppy Z. Bright lives in New Orleans, and even though he's not from New Orleans, I think has been there long enough to really get the gist of it. And I'm feeling a bit homesick. I am feeling a bit homesick lately, so I would like to visit New Orleans in book form. And hopefully, in the voodoo and dark arts of the French Quarter, we'll find a piece of home in this book. I do expect that this book will be freaky and weird, and that is just what I want. And it wouldn't be New Orleans if it wasn't freaky and weird. I don't know why, but Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar is calling my name. I've had this book for so long. It was one that I got years ago when it released from Nightworms, and for whatever reason, just never read. I think I've always thought that I would really enjoy this book and have just kept putting it off because it's nice to have a book that you think that you're going to enjoy sitting on your shelf. In the summer of 1988, the mutilated bodies of several missing girls begin to turn up in a small Maryland town. The grisly evidence leads police to the terrifying assumption that a serial killer is on the loose in the quiet suburb, and soon a rumor begins to spread that the evil stalking local teens is not entirely human. Recent college graduate Richard Chismar returns to his hometown just as a curfew is enacted and a neighborhood watch group is formed. In the midst of preparing for his wedding and embarking on a writing career, he soon finds himself thrust into a real-life horror story. Inspired by the terrifying event, Chismar writes a personal account of the serial killer's reign of terror. So it is somehow metafictional, which appeals to me. I forgot that he wrote himself into the story. So I love that kind of thing. I think this will work for me, and I will not be looking at any reviews that tell me otherwise. Another book that's been sitting on my shelf for a long time and has actually been sitting on that cart right there you may have seen is Dark Carnival's Modern Horror and the Origins of American Empire by W. Scott Poole. And this is all about tracking the history of the United States along with the tradition of horror film and how horror film may be reflecting those real life horrors that have been stewing throughout the history of the United States, of colonization, of wars and slavery, and all of the evil things tied to being an empire. It goes through a lot of different ideas, and there's a table of content. So part 1 is The Shark and the Chainsaw, part 2, Atomic Empire, part 3, Cold War Red Planet, part 4, Zombie Republics and Body Bags, part 6, The Forever Wars. And so I think it really covers a lot of history, and you wouldn't have to read it necessarily all in one sitting or all at one time. If there's a part that's about a movie that I haven't seen yet, I could skip it, watch the movie, and then come back and read it, which might be what happens because I still have not seen everything in the horror film canon, so to speak. And it does go into the 2000s and the forever wars in the Middle East. So, there is more recent stuff in here as well. It just sounds like a very well researched book, a very to my interest book. And I have so many audiobooks checked out on Libby right now. So, some of them that I hope to get to this month include Direct Descendant by Tanya Huff, which is described as a queer cozy horror. It's set in modern day Toronto and is somehow, I think, Lovecraftian, like cosmic horror in nature, but cozy. And it is centered around the life of the town baker. So if I'm looking for a cozier read in the midst of all of this real terror and horror, that might be the go. As well as The Sundowners Dance by Todd Kiesling, which is about a retirement community that starts worshiping a meteorite and is also cosmic horror in nature, which sounds very, very fun. But I have many more audiobooks checked out, and I'm sure I will get holds that come in that I'm excited to read and other things along the way. So this is definitely not the limit of what I will be reading in June, but I do hope that I read at least what I've said today. But things always change. So, what are you reading for Summerween? What are you reading for Pride Month? What are you reading in June? Is there something else that I need to know about? Please chat to me down below. Give the video a like, subscribe if you want to. I love having you here. But until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.